I am being bullied by one of my new neighbours that has physically hurt me. I wish to know two things. One, how do I be at peace? And two, whilst God is in my corner, I still feel a desire to kind of lash out.
We have this idea, thank you for the question, we have this idea that if God is in our corner, no harm can come to us, but we still need to do the work. You know, I always used to say to people, I had a friend of mine who was a sixth dan, and he said, every time I go into this pub by me, he said, there's a guy in there. I said, I know it's going to kick off with him because he's looking for a fight with me. And I said, well, why do you drink there? I said, there's 20 pubs in the area. Well, I've got every right to drink there. I said, well, you've got every right to stand in a piece of shit on the floor. It doesn't mean you do it. So I just said to him, you can change pubs, go somewhere else. Either that or you can go and speak to him and, you know, reconcile, but you don't have to be in that place. So I would say that if you're in an environment where there's bullying and there's violence around you, there's nothing wrong with changing that environment. And if you've got a connection with God, lashing out isn't going to help because it's just going to exasperate the problem. But if you've got a relationship with God, then you go into your prayers and you honestly say, I've got this situation in my life, please show me how to solve it or how to resolve it. So that might mean moving house, moving to somewhere else, somewhere a bit quieter. It might mean calling the police, because that's what the police are there for. You've got the law there to protect you. But more than anything else, you don't have to be in that environment. I lived in lots of negative environments. I worked in lots of negative environments. And the main thing they taught me is that I can choose my environment. So I would say move somewhere else. And if that feels like an impossible thing, try and think bigger. There'll be a way of moving. And at some point, sit down. And if you keep attracting people that are into your life that are bullies, try and find out what it is in you that's attracting that. It might just be the environment at the moment. It might be that you feel as though this is the only environment you deserve. But I would say change environment, go deeper into your prayer, deeper into your meditation. The answer to every problem is within the problem. The solution is within the problem. So that might not immediately get rid of it, but it'll give you cause for contemplation and for curiosity, and try and figure out, is this happening all the time? Am I always attracting bullies? But at the very bottom level, move somewhere else. And if that's difficult, do whatever you need to do to move. I've helped so many people get out of negative environments by just giving them permission to move to a better place.
You mention a lot about Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Did his character have an effect on you?
Yeah, what I loved about the Prophet Muhammad, and I was introduced to the Quran through my friend Wael, was his courage. I've always been inspired by courage. I've been inspired by the fact that before he became the prophet, he was he worked in business. He was very philanthropic. And he used to go and meditate in the mountains. He used to do lots for charity, but you wouldn't have seen him as an extraordinary person. Although his wife, Hadija, really saw something special in him. When he heard the voice of the prophet and he got the first soundings of the Quran, he was so afraid that he ran off the mountain and he ran to his wife and he asked his wife to hide him. And she encouraged him to go back up and listen again. But I like the fact in Islam that they're not afraid to mention the fact that he was afraid. He actually thought he was being possessed by jinn, by devils. But his wife encouraged him to go back up again and listen to the voice. I was really encouraged and inspired by that. It's similar to the story of Jesus, the story of Arjuna Pandava. Most of the prophets went through periods of abject terror, the fire and thorns around the kingdom before they actually met with their own soul. So that led me on to reading the Quran, led me on to reading people like Al-Ghazali, who I really love, people like Rumi and Hafiz. So I've got a lot from Islam, particularly in the Quran. I love the later verses where it talks about the fact that you are supported. We gird your back, we give you the money, but it also asks, what are you doing with the money we've given you? What are you doing with the support we've given you? For every difficulty, we give you one easy. For every difficulty, we give you one easy. It says it twice. I love that. It's saying it's not bad all the time. We're giving you, every time it's difficult, we're giving you one period of ease. We're supporting you, but there is an expectation. When you leave your body, you'll go into a room with 2 queues. The longest queue will be for excuse makers. Don't be an excuse maker. I said the other day, are you making honey or are you making excuses? That question will be asked. And you can't lie when you're in that queue. You can't lie, because even your skin will speak a testimony against you. So I loved the honesty of that. I love when you go into the, into the exegesis of the Quran, where it talks about this, that you are being given support, but there is expectation. Don't come back with nothing, and don't come back with lies, because even your skin will speak a testimony against you. So I take a lot of courage from the life of Muhammad. I take a lot of courage from what he represented. And he really just represented a new word on the Torah. It's like Gabriel was saying to him, people are not living the Torah, they're not living the word. We want you to go back and say to them, you need to live this word. So he was looking around and he didn't see the Christians or the Judaic caste as living the word. So the Quran was just a reiteration of the Torah. You've got to live the word. You've got to be it. You've got to think it, say it, and do it. So I continue to get loads from it.
I heard you say on a podcast that martial arts indulges the lower chakras. If you train from a different consciousness, training for health instead of dealing with a bully, could you realign or balance these chakras?
For me, the physical part of the training always had limitations. So when I was training to hit the bag harder and lift weights and do all the physical stuff, there's a lot of limitations with that. It does develop the lower chakras, but it doesn't encourage the higher chakras. So there comes a point where you have to let go of the physical armor and you have to put on the armor of God. So you have to put on the robe of Malkut, as they say in Judaism. You have to put on a robe of higher knowledge. So you have to stop wrestling on the outside and start wrestling on the inside. A lot of people in the martial arts, from my experience, and I was one of them, get stuck in this need to continually be physical, and they don't transcend into the Budo, into the esoteric part of their art, which is much more about pranayama, much more about breath, much more about the inner life than the outer life. So if we get stuck there, it can really limit you. And it took me ages to let go of the physical, but eventually you will let go of it, same as Ushiba did, same as Funakoshi did, same as Jano did, same as Musashi did. At some point, everybody reaches that point where their art becomes working in and not working out.
Hi Geoff, I'm a Christian who trains wrestling BJJ, who occasionally works on the doors. Did you ever work with or know of any pure grapplers on the doors, the type of grappler who rejected the preemptive strike for pure grappling technique, for either moral or training purposes? If so, were they effective?
A lot of the stuff you do on the door, if you're manhandling people, they're in a fight and you're dragging them out, you do use wrestling techniques to restrain. And I only knew of, I only knew of one person who was a pure grappler in my time. And he wasn't a doorman, but he used to stand with us. And he was a really good judo player. And I remember John said there was a big fight one day, and he said when he grabbed people, he was really effective, but the rest of the time he got battered because he had no preemption at all. He had no hands at all. So I think it's got its limitations. It's not for me to say that anybody should be preemptive. It's just for me to say what I experienced. What I got from the grappling completed the circle for me. I got so confident with the grappling that eventually I was able to let go of the need to preemptively strike somebody. So I started to use dialogue a lot more, across the table negotiations. So I started to talk situations down. Eventually, I recognised that I didn't need to work on the door at all. I needed whatever it was on the door that satisfied my need to be physical. I traced it back to what was in me. And I started to do the internal wrestle, which is what Jacob did on the ladder of ascension. In Jacob's ladder, his wrestle with the angel, or his wrestle with His own negative nature was internal, and he went up a whole new grade when he was able to defeat the negative side of him. So grappling's a great metaphor. And same as Arjuna, same as Krishna in the Bhagavatam. Krishna established full consciousness by wrestling with the pseudo king and tapping him out or killing him. So the wrestle's always going to be an internal thing. So I would say, for me, going into the grappling gave me a lot of confidence, but I would never have used it as a mainstay on the door because it would make you too vulnerable. But it did lead me on to bigger things later when I stopped wrestling with manifest things and started wrestling with the core of them, which was internal. I went inside, I traced it back and found out what it was with me that I was struggling with, and I wrestled with the dark side of my own nature, and I continue to do that.
Do you still have any contact with your old door peers?
Not really, no. I mean, I think about them a lot. I think about John Anderson a lot, particularly, and I think about some of the lads I work with, but particularly John, because he was such a great teacher to me and such a great friend. I owe everything to John Anderson, or Awesome Anderson, but I don't see them very much now. You just kind of end up in different places and different circles, but they're in my mind all the time. I love them.
My old manager and I had a fallout because I knew about the shady activities he would participate in and use his position to boast about his manhood and talk down to those who read books or try to be better than a bouncer. How can I get myself to move on and forgive him instead of feeling vindictive?
If you don't mind me being direct, he's got nothing to do with you. Work on yourself. Work on the parts of you that, if you're looking at the parts of him that are really making you feel angry, and the parts of you that are the parts of him that are making you feel vindictive, look at what they are in you. What aspects of your life are reflected in his? Our job is not to try and change anybody in front of us. Our job is to change ourselves. So in the early days, I was angry at greedy politicians, corrupt politicians, greedy bankers, violent fundamentalists, until I realised there was a greedy banker in me, definitely. There was definitely a corrupt politician in me, and there was definitely a violent fundamentalist just waiting to spill out. So I stopped looking at them. They're nothing to do with me. I started to work on me. I started to concentrate on me. So I'd say you've got nothing to forgive him for. He's done nothing to you. You just need to work on perfecting yourself. If somebody out there is being twice as bad, you can be twice as good. If somebody out there is loose in their morals, you can be tight in your morals. If somebody out there is flouting their virtues and not stepping up, you can step up more and you can perfect your virtues. Use everything as a mirror. Basic projection in psychology says that the things we dislike most in another person is the thing that we're not stepping up to ourselves. So if I look at somebody and say this person's greedy, I just add to the sentence in my own head, just like me. This person's horrible, just like me. This person's jealous, just like me. This person's violent, just like me. So I look at basic projection, just says that what you see in them is what you don't like in you. Same as there's a thing in psychology called reaction formation. We tend to hate in other people what we most dislike in ourselves. So people become a mirror, they become teachers. Somebody said to me once, who's your teacher? Everybody's my teacher. There's nothing that's not my teacher. These beams in my house become my teacher. Everything, if I speak to these walls, they'll answer me. And I'm not being metaphorical. Everything will talk to you. This is a panpsychic universe, and everything will talk to you through everything if you're open to listen. But, as Aeschylus tells us, the Greek philosopher, knowledge is painful. That's why we avoid knowledge, like the plague, because it's painful. To expand is painful, because you're giving birth to spirit, and you're killing ignorance. So I would say, with respect, don't look at him. Look at yourself. Where can you improve?
I have recently read one of your books, and I want to ask, how did you get your confidence to fight back against your bullies? I am being bullied now, and I get too scared to stand up for myself.
I just reached a point in my life where I was so tired of my story. I was so tired of being depressed and so tired of being scared that I I read everything I could to try and improve it, but nothing seemed to be helping. Nobody seemed to be telling the truth. Nobody was being honest. That's how it felt. And then in the middle of one depression, I just found this anger from somewhere, and it was a righteous anger. And I just thought, I can't live like this anymore. And I decided, I just had this intuition or this grace to confront everything I was afraid of, to put down everything on paper that I was afraid of, and start to confront it one by one. So I didn't just become a doorman. I started to confront my fear of spiders. I started to confront my fear of going into karate competitions. I started to confront my fear of being afraid. I started to confront my fear of admitting that I was afraid. I never used to admit it. I used to say, I'm not afraid, I just don't want to do that. And what I realised as I started to confront these fears is that every time I overcame a fear, I converted that fear, there's a spark of light in every fear, I converted that fear into effulgence, into consciousness. And that gave me courage and a bit more insight. And that gave me enough energy to go to the next fear and the next fear. And then as I started to climb the pyramid, the normal mundane things on the pyramid, like the fear of spiders, the fear of dentists, were replaced by deeper fears, a fear of my wife, a fear of my mother, a fear of change, a fear of success, a fear of what I didn't understand. And so I started to confront all of these fears, and they just expanded exponentially. So I just started by looking at what it was in me that was being bullied, what it was in me that was afraid. I recognised that there were no problems in the world. There were just opportunities. That's all. And if there was a problem, the solution was in the problem. But I had to reach that point of deep depression before I found that. And it came as a grace, came as a seed. And I just unpacked that seed and let it grow. And I'm continuing to work on that now. My consciousness, it continues to expand as my ego and my ignorance continues to contract. So the solution to your problem is in the problem. So I would ask you or advise you to concentrate or meditate on that problem. Go to your higher self and ask for guidance. And start by confronting the small things. Get a few victories under your belt and your courage will grow.
How can you take instruction from all the holy books from different religions without being drawn into the dogma of those religions?
Well, I think the good thing for me is that I had a history in the martial arts. And when I went on the door, I realised that there was one element within all of them that worked, that was efficacious. So I was used to working in lots of arts. People would say to me, you can't do lots of arts, they don't mix. But actually they all did. I did every art I could, and I brought it and I pressure tested it on the door. So with religion, I'm able to do the same thing. I'm able to recognise at the lower end, there's lots of conflict and lots of politics and lots of dichotomy and lots of contradictions. But at the higher end, you wouldn't know a Buddha from a Muhammad or from a Christ. At the higher end, there's none of that discrimination. There is just one pure singularity of love. So I'm able to go in. I don't really choose the books and the religions I go into. I'm led there by my own inner tutor. So I've connected to my own soul, and my own inner tutor will take me to different places. And the books I read tend to validate my own experiences and help me to expand on them. And it's a two-way street. I work with incorporeal energies, with invisible beings, and they teach me and they lead me to do the work. But I'm also aware that what I release and what I learn helps them as well. It's a two-way street. So I'm able to do it because I've got a history of working in lots of different martial arts without getting caught in the dogma of the martial arts. Believe me, when I was in karate, the people in karate were dogmatic. It's just karate. When I was in boxing, there was an arrogance. It's just boxing. In judo, everybody thought judo was king. In wrestling, they thought everybody else was weak compared to them. Everybody, and it's the same in religion, everybody thinks their system is the only system. I worked on the door, so I was able to quickly discriminate what was going to be useful for me and what was not going to be useful. So I didn't get caught in the dogma. I just went into the art and I took what I needed, I perfected it, and then I imposed it back out into the world again. So all of them have got something to offer. But let yourself be led there by your own intuition. It's no point reading books for the sake of it. Be led there by your intuition and you'll find what you need to find.